Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Overmars, and I work with the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this panel discussion entitled Black Food Sovereignty in Mi'kma'ki, part of our Human Rights Week series of events. Since 2023, communities throughout the province have been invited to join in this week-long celebration of human rights from December 3rd to 10th. Presented by the Human Rights Commission in partnership with human rights champions, community-based organizations, and colleagues in government, the week's events highlight the foundational role that human rights play in protecting each person's right to live free from discrimination and the powerful force of a collective effort. This session will provide you an opportunity to consider how food is closely connected and entwined with our health, including mind, body, and spirit. Food sovereignty is about agency and access to land. It is more than food security. It's about Indigenous wisdom and, most importantly, culture. Today's panelists are all part of the African Nova Scotian and Black Food Advisory Committee, which is a branch of the JustFood Action Plan for the City of Halifax. You're about to hear what Black food sovereignty looks and tastes like in Mi'kma'ki. Before I pass the mic over to Wendy Wilson to introduce the topic and meet our panelists, I'd like to share that with deep respect for the Mi'kmaq people, the Commission acknowledges that we are located in Chibuktuk, on the unceded ancestral territory of Mi'kma'ki. This land is covered by the sacred peace and friendship treaties signed with the British Crown in the early 1700s. We honor the profound historical and spiritual connections of the Mi'kmaq people to this land, where their ancestors' legacies endure. As treaty people, we are bound by the promises made in these treaties, guiding us in mutual respect and reconciliation. We commit to working together in harmony with respect for the Mi'kmaq people, their culture, and their rights. Again, I want to thank everybody that's been tuning in for these sessions throughout Nova Scotia Human Rights Week. It's been really wonderful to hear from people from across the province working in different fields, advancing equity and justice in various areas. There are a few more sessions taking place today, tomorrow, and again, the Human Rights Awards will be presented on December the 10th. Folks can tune in online or join us in person if you're in Halifax. We'll be at the Central Branch Library in the Paul O'Regan Hall beginning at 2 o'clock. And recordings of this session and sessions that have already taken place can be found on the Commission's website at humanrights.novascotia.ca. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Wendy. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeff. So we're just going to get started with we have a slide deck to begin with, and we're going to just divide our time together in a few different parts. We're going to just upload you with some information about who we are as African Nova Scotians. We also want to be able to talk to you about the work that we're doing and the relevance here in Mi'kma'ki to Black food sovereignty and what that looks and tastes like. So we're going to get started with our own land acknowledgement that Nakia will be doing, and then so on board today is my cohorts Nakia Paris and Danielle Wright Jackson. We're missing Rodney Small, but we'll introduce ourselves a little further into the presentation. But for now, we're just going to just move and just take some time to be respectful and acknowledge where we are placed in the present. So go ahead, Nakia.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Wendy, and good morning, everybody. We would like to acknowledge that we are all here as a result of Mother Africa, the cradle of humanity and birthplace of civilization. Today, we are joining you from Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the incredible legacy and historical contributions of African Nova Scotians and people of African descent who have resided in Mi'kma'ki for over 400 years. Canada is the occupied Indigenous territories of many nations, and these cities were built with the labor of enslaved and terrorized Indigenous and African peoples who were stolen from their land. One can truly not be remembered without the other.
Thank you, Nakia. And in the role that I'm in currently, in my daytime job, is that you often, and different events that you go to, you will often see land acknowledgements. And quite often what I notice is that, we are quick to acknowledge the truth about us being on unceded territory. But that reconciliation piece is the piece that I feel really needs to be put into action. And so I would just challenge anyone out there, and for you to challenge other people as well, is reconciliation doesn't have to be like this really big thing. It can be done on a daily basis. It can be done in steps. It can be done in the moment. And so think about ways that you can offer opportunities for reconciliation. I know I certainly do, especially when it comes to food and food sovereignty and Indigenous food sovereignty as well. Um, I also, one of the things that I try to do as much as possible, I am an educator. So whenever I come across material, information, knowledge, wisdom, I will acknowledge the owners or the creators of that knowledge. And often in the spaces and education in the spaces that I'm in, often I am noticing that that knowledge is Indigenous wisdom, which we have to give credit for. We don't own that. So think about ways that you can reconcile on a daily basis in small and big ways. So here we are, the African, Nova Scotian, and Black Food Sovereignty Advisory. We mentioned who we are, and we're just going to just take a moment, and I'll just hand it off to Nikay if you're okay to get us started,
Yeah.
and you can then Danielle, and then I'll talk a little bit about myself, who I am, a little bit of some background, and then we'll also introduce Rodney Small, who's actually wasn't able to be here with us today.
Yes, thank you for that, Wendy. So as Wendy mentioned, my name is Nikia Paris. And I'm a member of the African, Nova Scotian, and Black Food Sovereignty Advisory. This is my heart work, I always say, but my daytime job, I am a registered dietitian. And currently I'm working in policy for Nova Scotia Health, supporting a lot of our clinical dietitians and frontline work that they do, but also intertwining a lot of this work that I do in community, my own lived experience in terms of the continuum of care and what that looks like. So just a little bit about me.
And my name is Danielle Wright Jackson. I hail from the beautiful community of Beachville. I always think it's important for me to stay where I'm from. Um, I am also a member of the advisory committee. In my day job, I work with the Department of Opportunities and Social Development with the Disability Support Program as a engagement coordinator. And as Nikaya said, this is kind of hard work for me. I've been a community advocate since I was a teenager. So doing this work and bringing information to community is kind of what keeps me going and gives me fire.
Muted there. Once again, Wendy Wilson, and I'm primarily an educator, so I've been in public education for the last 20 years. Plus, actually, Nikay, if you don't mind me mentioning, I know sometimes but this is such a full circle moment. Nikaya was one of my first cohorts of students in elementary school. I believe it was grade 3 when I taught at Joe Howe School. So we grew up, actually, Nikay and I grew up in the same community, and her family has roots in Africville as well. And Danielle is always good to mention, or to give me that prompt, is the pride that we take in terms of the communities that we're from. So I grew up in Uniacke Square. My father was born in North Preston, moved when he was 2 to a community through the back roads called the Old Guysborough Road. And my mother's people come from Fall River. And so we've been here for many years, hundreds of years actually. And I'll talk a little bit more about the history when we get into it. I'm a member of the Coalition for Healthy School Foods. I'm on their steering committee. So that was the organization that got the Universal School Food Program up and running. As an educator, this is how I basically made my way into this line of work in community, was through education and seeing what students were eating and kind of correlating those things with some of the data that we were collecting. I am on the board for Food Secure Canada. I've done, quite a bit of work across Canada around Black food sovereignty and Indigenous food sovereignty. And just so grateful to be here with you today. We will be taking an organic approach. We're going to be sharing some information with you, as I mentioned, and then we're just going to take it from there and just really just let the ancestors guide us in terms of what we feel like the information you need today. And then there will be time toward the end for some questions and answers. And if you have any during the presentation, please just put them in the Q&A, and hopefully we'll be able to get to your question. And Nikaya, do you want to talk a little bit about Rodney?
Yes, I sure can. And so, as Wendy mentioned, we are a full group, but we are missing one of our key members, Rodney Small. And so, on his behalf, we wanted to make sure you guys got some knowledge about him as well. So, Rodney Small is an African Nova Scotian. He was raised within the community of North End. He has connections to the community of North Preston as well. He currently is the executive director of the One North End Economic Development Society, also known as the One, but he plays many roles in community, a lot of it around supporting youth, mentorship. He also supports the African Nova Scotian Lab, so the ANS Lab, which is a entity of the One that really just supports education and learning for African Nova Scotian youth, and moving their voices forward. They've done a lot of amazing things, and Rodney also, I believe, is doing some work through his board as well with the One. A lot of his focus again is on economic development, wealth, but the connection to food security is so deep. So the four of us, we have a deep relationship personally together, but also professionally. All of our expertise come together and really mesh. And so we're hoping to share a little bit about that with you guys today too.
Thanks, Nikaya. So we'll just move on. And yeah, so the ANS MB Food Sovereignty Advisory just is just some general information about who we are. So I can go ahead and get us started. So created to ensure Black voices are a part of Halifax's food planning. The ANSB Food Sovereignty Advisory is a key part of Halifax's JustFood Action Plan, which is Halifax's first big plan to make sure everyone has access to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food.
Our goals are simply to create, recognize, and support Black-led food initiatives that are rooted in cultural knowledge and land stewardship, to break down the barriers for food access for the Black communities, move towards more community-led solutions that promote choice, dignity, and sovereignty, and to develop and build community infrastructure and capacity that creates economic and social benefits for food production and distribution in the Black communities.
Great. And I can speak to our purpose. So we celebrate and strengthen African, Nova Scotian, and Black food culture through community-led programs that build dignified, sustainable, and community-owned food systems. And our work really creates an economic and social opportunities by growing and sharing food while ensuring Black communities are actively leading and shaping Halifax's food planning and food future.
Okay, so the overview for today is I'm going to get started and tell the group a bit more about who we are as African Nova Scotians, and then I'll move into the difference between food security and food sovereignty, and then Nikaya is going to pick up on policy impact and implications on health. And of course, our expert in community engagement is Danielle Wright Jackson, who's going to talk to you about our community engagement and some of our current programs. And then we're going to have the opportunity for us to kind of dialogue, engage, ask questions, and just really find out what information that you're looking for this morning, or looking to add to your repertoire of your wisdom and knowledge, so that you can push this moving forward as well. So African Nova Scotians, who we are a people that have been here for generations. The majority of us have been here for, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 generations now. We have really planted and dug our roots in deep in this place. We came in three, or sorry, actually four major waves. So, as Black loyalists, after the War of 1812, as Black refugees, Jamaican Maroons, and Black planters. And the Black planters came first and then succeeded in the next three major waves that has really grown 52, really, when we think about it, over 52 land-based Black communities in Mi'kma'ki. We are resilient people. We have a very unique and vibrant culture here, rooted in this place. If you ask any African Nova Scotian where they're from, and I've asked many, this is the place that we say that we're from. Of course, you know, the circumstances behind that. Many of us came through enslavement or through fleeing enslavement. And as a result, there are many structural and systematic barriers for us here in this place, and food being one of them. I was asked a long time ago about something that was really important to me, and that is equity and advocacy. And what I noted is that I thought that racism was the thing that was like my biggest fight. Like that's the thing, that's the barrier, that's the thing to overcome, and spent my lifetime trying to overcome it. Until I realized when I started to get into this work, just around COVID, like everyone else, you know what I mean? You pick up new things, you become passionate about with different things, and I realized food is the first fight. Like we can't do anything without being having shelter, having our food, feeling safe. And so this is the way that I deal with social justice. This is the way that I put my foot first, in a direction where I feel that it is so important that we, as people of African descent and really as Nova Scotians, this is the place where we really have to put the work in, right? Is we need to be able to feed people. And so we're going to talk about what food means to us. But I did want to mention also that sometimes you might hear we're not a monolithic group, we're a cultural group, but we're not monolithic. So you'll hear African Nova Scotians sometimes refer to themselves as Black Nova Scotians or Indigenous Black or Afro Indigenous. And so there's different terminologies that you'll hear people use to refer to themselves, but we're the same people. And we do have a definition. Our definition is that in order to be African Nova Scotian, you must have historical roots in one of the over 50 Black communities throughout Nova Scotia that predate Confederation. So I'm just going to go. So here we are. We're right into the meat of it. So here's where I'm going to be talking about food security. And this is a term that we often hear in government, provincial government, federal government, is this goal to be food secure. This is what we've been talking about. This is what we want. This is our goal. This is what we're aiming towards. The availability of food, the accessibility of food, the acceptability of food, the appropriateness of food, and what we're really going to be honing in on today is this piece around agency. This is really key for us in Black community. And so I'm just going to go to the next slide and just look at an example of what the difference between food security and food sovereignty is, right? So if you're interested, there's a really great webinar, or sorry, podcast that Nikkei and I did not quite a year ago, and this, which talks about food, this notion of food sovereignty here in Mi'kma'ki. And so this is how I describe it. So I'm food secure. I have a pretty good job. I am educated. I know the difference between foods that are healthy and foods that might, cause damage. But I have a vehicle. I can get around. I can order Uber Eats. Like I can get food. I can get the best of foods. And so I would consider myself currently as someone who is food secure. And actually, I'll just stop here and just talk. Like, I've always been food secure my whole life. Very fortunate because of my parents grew up in Uniacke Square, but my father always kept a large garden in the country on his father's property, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she had the time and the capacity to make all of her meals from scratch. Like, none of our meals came out of a box or a can. Like, she made everything and fresh food from the land, and so I've always been food secure. But one thing that I haven't been is food sovereign, and I only recently, over the last 5 years or so, realized what the difference is. So I don't know where my food comes from most of the time. If I'm buying things that might come in, on a real fancy packaging, I very rarely am able to pronounce or even know all the ingredients that are in my food. I don't know if these things are safe. I don't really know how they affect my body sometimes. I'm not growing my own food for the most part. I do keep a little garden, but I'm not growing. So I'm depending on other systems, other people to make decisions about food for me. And so if my food no longer is available, then I'm very vulnerable. I went from being someone who was very food secure to not being secure at all with the food. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to put the control, the agency back into the hands of the people that are actually consuming the food. So that's really the difference in terms of food security and food sovereignty. I feel very vulnerable, and so our goal here as an advisory is to find ways to create pathways for people of African descent, African Nova Scotian folks, and the broader Black community to have access to good, healthy, culturally appropriate food. And when we say healthy, we mean it in the broadest sense, mind, body, spirit. Um, Sometimes who we're eating with can be just as important as what we're eating. And so food is also spiritual to us as well. It is very much connected to many of our ceremonies and rituals that we do. And that ritual could be just the Sunday meal, you know, that many people enjoyed as family, as community. The roast beef dinners, the pigtails and cabbage, and those meals that took a little bit more time. And and I will say one of the commonalities with our food as people of African Nova Scotian descent is our food is slow food. It's slow food. It's not food that you stir it up and you send it off. It's food that, you have to soak. It's food that you have to cook slowly. It's food that has to tenderize. And so um, many of our dishes are centered around just taking the time to enjoy the food and see food as something that is just so sacred. So yeah, so I'm going to actually read. Someone challenged me to write a definition of or a summary of Black food sovereignty, and I'm just going to take a moment to read that to you. So, Black food sovereignty moves beyond food security to a place where people of African descent strive to take exclusive control over their own food systems and the economic benefits that follow. It's about creating space to promote and foster self-determination regarding everything related to food, from planting, growing, harvesting, processing, transporting, distributing, and everything in between. Food not only nourishes our bodies, but it is also connected to our mental health, our emotional health, and our spiritual health. How we gather our food and who we eat with can be just as important as what we eat. Black food sovereignty is an integral part of both healthy communities as well as culture. As people of African descent, we need to be the ones to determine what is healthy and culturally appropriate, and most importantly, what is beneficial and safe for our consumption. This, and I'm going to note this. This is a movement. This movement encourages connection or reconnection to the land and supports ways to nurture and grow our ecosystem. Black food sovereignty promotes land stewardship and responsibility to our local environments as well as duty to sustainably prepare the way for generations to come. When we realize that planting seeds is revolutionary, it changes everything. And it lends perspective in terms of our health, agency, and power. So I think I feel like I've kind of said enough and kind of got us started in what we really wanted people to understand is this piece between this term that we hear quite often in government and in community around food security to moving it further to this piece around Black food sovereignty and really putting control back into the hands of the people that will consume the food.
Great. Thank you for that, Wendy. So I'm going to take over for a little bit now and really kind of talk about the broader impact that a lot of the systems and places in which all of us navigate every single day are not only shaped by policy at all levels, so federal, provincial and municipal, but what is the impact and implications on health for each and every one of us? But then drill down a little bit more into those of us who are Black, African, Nova Scotian, and Indigenous as well, and really talk about some of the ways in which this really has showed up historically in our Black communities, but also continues to show up today. So, one of the things that I may have missed when giving a little introduction about myself, sometimes it's a little weird to kind of chat about ourselves and share all of the things. But as I mentioned, I am a registered dietitian and I currently hold a position in policy. But prior to the position I am in now with Nova Scotia Health, I did work for the provincial government of Nova Scotia for a year and a half as a food security policy analyst. So that was a really interesting role to be in. It was first of its kind role for government to kind of have somebody focus on food security. But as Wendy spoke to so eloquently, you can see how it really missed the mark of a lot of the things that really drive our food systems and the idea of food sovereignty. And so being in that role in a year and a half, I got to support a lot of Nova Scotians, a lot of African Nova Scotians as well. But I also got to see the impacts and implications in real time of policies, of governmental agendas, and how this impacts communities. And for myself, for the most part, I grew up as food secure, but there were many times where I grew up, I experienced food insecurity. Definitely didn't have an idea of food sovereignty really until Wendy was able to break it down for our groups. We talk a lot about these concepts in the work that we do. And so even for myself as a nutrition professional, these are things that I'm constantly thinking about every day, reminding myself. But it was really interesting to kind of balance the role of being a community member, growing up again, and having to face the barriers that some of these policies I'll chat about in a second, how they impact us every day. But again, then now sitting on this side of the shoe and creating policies every day, supporting policies every day, and seeing how it shows up in real time. And so policies in Canada have a significant impact on our health and nutrition, and they influence everything from our food availability and affordability to the public health outcomes, whether it's intended public health outcomes they're trying to aim for or unintended. And these policies are shaped, as I mentioned before, by all levels of government. So federal, provincial, and municipal levels, and address issues such as food security, right? Some of them have dietary guidelines, healthcare access, food labeling, all kinds of things. But here I have listed a few of our major examples of policies and the ways that they impact our health and nutrition in Canada. And these are purposeful ones. So many folks are familiar with the Canada's Food Guide that has taken many different shapes and forms over the years and the decades. And this was really put into place at the federal level to support our dietary recommendations that influence public health initiatives, as Wendy spoke to, the school meal programs, institutional places as well, such as those jails or prisons. things like that. And as the latest update of the Canada's Food Guide emphasizes, plant-based foods, right? So reducing processed foods, aiming to curb, with the focus of aiming to curb diet-related illnesses. But you look at the new food guide, the picture is beautiful. It's colorful. You see fresh fruits and vegetables, and really kind of what we may think of as like the purest forms of food. We also have food labeling and regulations here in Canada as well. So our government mandates nutritional labeling on packaged foods to really inform us as consumers about the ingredients, the allergens, the calorie content of things we're going to eat. So again, when we aren't as food sovereign and perhaps to go to the grocery store, we pick up a package of something. Some of us have the ability to choose different brands. The information on those packages really play a key role. And again, the focus is on those curbing those dietary related illnesses that we see kind of happen as a result of what we refer to as ultra processed foods. So those who are high in sodium, sugar, fat, and really giving us as consumers that information. We also have the trans fat ban in Canada. If those aren't aware, this is a ban where Canada banned partially what we refer to as hydrogenated oils. This happened in 2018, and this is because trans fat is a type of harmful fat that if you consume too much, it actually has a direct correlation to heart disease. So previous to 2018, a lot of our products, especially those baked goods, those delicious ones that we love to eat and to consume, were really high in trans fat. And so that was one avenue that our government took to kind of curb that. And then we have, policies that are around food security and access. So Nutrition North Canada, this is a federal subsidy program that helps to improve. I say improve because that's the goal, but doesn't mean it's always the actual impact. But it helps to improve food availability in remote and Indigenous communities by semi reducing the cost of what we refer to as nutritious foods, imperishable foods. Again, we have our provincial school food programs as well. And as Wendy spoke to, again, our province has been doing a great job in this, but many provinces have implemented this meal program for children to address really food insecurity and promote what they refer to as healthy eating habits. We also have our healthcare policies, and their goal is to prevent chronic diseases. And lastly, I'll mention there's a safe drinking water policy. Now, this one's really interesting because, many of our Indigenous communities still face boil water advisories till this very day. And when we think about one of the single elements that's needed for food, it's water, right? Water flows so freely in so many places around the world. Yet right here in Canada, our Indigenous brothers and sisters still don't have access to safe drinking water on land that belongs to them. So it's really interesting that there's policies in place for this, but it's not upheld everywhere. And so, as I mentioned here on the slide, all of these policies are put in place to support all Canadians now. But this really never used to be the case. And honestly, it still isn't currently the case when we think about the ways in which some of these policies show up and barriers that are put in place to impact them. And so the other avenue that our group really focuses on from the African, Nova Scotian, and Black perspective is really bringing the cultural impact to food and how this shows up from a food sovereignty perspective, but also how it impacts food security, how it impacts literally everything that we do and the importance of that. And, we feel that when policies fail to reflect cultural needs, they really do create systemic barriers that directly shape the health outcomes of many communities, but from our perspective and lived experience, our Black communities and African Nova Scotian communities. And this mismatch really does curtail the access to culturally appropriate foods. It limits the support for traditional foodways. So again, thinking of Wendy's story that she spoke about, her father was able to still own and manage a garden outside of the urban peninsula of Halifax, and that supported food for her family. That was a traditional way of that. And so it also, imposes regulations that undervalue community-led growing and cooking and distribution. And so The results really is what we're experiencing today, right? It's a landscape where we have higher rates of things like hypertension, diabetes, any sort of diet-related illnesses, and this really isn't because of individual choices alone, but again, taking a step back into the policies, the ecosystems that push communities towards expensive foods, ultra-processed foods, all of the things that these policies are trying to mitigate. They're kind of the same things that's supporting the correlation to bringing those at the forefront when we put things in place to stop one thing, but there aren't those systems, there aren't those cultural reflections in place to oppose those negative impacts. Another thing I want to quickly chat about, kind of going back to what I first mentioned or last mentioned around safe drinking water and how water really is the one of the primary foundations for food, whether it's ultra processed, processed, grown right in the land, you need water. We all need water. But this is a little bit of a deeper piece around food justice, and it really kind of impacts environmental racism. And so here I have some depictions of the historical community of Africville. Wendy mentioned this is also a community that my family hails from. I'm about sixth or seventh generation Africvillian, African Nova Scotian, but these pictures really do paint a story of how environmental racism has shown up in Africville, but also, again, how food justice really has always been the goal for communities and how communities was doing this long before any of us were in existence. So this picture here on the left, this shows a petition that were signed by members of the Africville community to hold the city accountable to put in a public well. So this picture here on the far right, this is what those who are part of the community of Africville had to see every single day when it came to needing to utilize water for their everyday needs, whether it was to bathe, whether it was to cook, whether it was to feed their pets that they have for themselves, or again, animals that were used as livestock for their food, to water their plants. They always had to boil this water. Mind you, everybody in this community, they were also taxpayers. So they followed the same laws, they followed the same policies that others did, but their community didn't have access to safe drinking water. And so for years they petitioned. They came together, they put their names at the forefront to say we need access to safe drinking water. Our taxpayer dollars are supposed to be going to things that we need as well, not just supporting the rest of those who resided close into the city of Halifax. And so this middle picture here was taken from the Nova Scotia Archives. It's dated at the top. You can see September 23rd, 1909. And it's a copy of the city council minutes that discussed the petition that Africvillians put forward to have safe drinking water. So as you could see down here at the bottom, I want to point our attention to this because this is again how environmental racism shows up. The petition at the end of the day, it was moved. It was seconded by members who sit on that board to say, yes, we will put in a well that provides safe drinking water for Africvillians. And then this is something that never came to pass. So 1909, the community of Africville eventually ended up being demolished the end of the 60s, going into the 70s. And so again, they went decades without having access to that, even though they were still pushing forward. And this is a lot of plays into the role of us in the work that we do as this advisory, but also on a deeper level into what many racialized communities still have to do. We have to carry those hats of being the ones to advocate for the needs of our communities, to really just highlight and speak to these things, but also find ways in which we can still show up for one another. And although this is something that, is unfortunate, this community was so beautiful. It still thrived. People were healthy. They were nourished. There's other pictures that I didn't show here, but Africville as well also was the place where the city of Halifax went to dump all their waste, all of their garbage. But it still thrived. It had a school, it had stores. People in the community, again, they contributed to markets all across the peninsula. They grew things. So, despite the things and the impact of environmental racism, it really did still thrive. And it's not something that stopped us from achieving food sovereignty in our own ways. However, there were, again, like I mentioned before, at the policy levels, there were those folks who failed to uphold their end of the bargain. But still, we rise, and we still did what we need to do. But funny enough, we're still having these same conversations today. So just some more encouragement to make sure that whatever environment we're all working in every single day, we're thinking it wasn't that long ago. And again, for some of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, they're still going through these things right now. So I'll pass it off to Danielle.
Thank you, Nikaya, for that. And you just brought attention to me that something that I also thought we should mention is that soul tax, right? Of the community members that continue to wear the many hats and still have to push forward regardless of the injustices that we face. And basically that's what brings us, like, the community engagement is so important. Oftentimes the answers are always found in community, but oftentimes communities just not consulted or given that voice and power to drive their own vehicle for what they know will work in their communities. So for us, we've really put intention into that and digging down. I did notice that I wanted to mention that we are a part of the Just Food strategy, which is in the HRM region. So right now our program is concentrated in the HRM region, but we do hope to expand and service the rural communities in the future because, as we said, our hope is for all Black people to have access to foods wherever they may be within Nova Scotia. So I'm briefly going to talk about some of our programs that we're doing right now. If we can go push. So we'll talk about the Blended Forward program, which is a food literacy and a blender cooking program that was facilitated by members of our advisory board and our food coordinator. We'll also talk about the aftermarket, which offers families and community members the unique opportunity to experience the vibrant brewery market as well. We also noticing that some folks in the community may not be able to travel into the market. We also brought the market to two churches so that folks could, choose food of their liking in a space that was comfortable for them as well. We also have our Soul Soup program where community prepares, packages, and delivers soups and meals to community members. And our Crisp Connections, which is an air fryer cooking program. It's intergenerational that provides participants with hands-on cooking experience, as well as we provide them with the air fryer at the end of the program so then they can continue to utilize those skills and equipment in their homes. And we'll touch a little bit more in on here. So this is the Blended Forward program. And Nikaya was our dietitian that provided such a wealth of knowledge to the participants in there. And I have to say that this program, you'll see a little bit more of it at the end of our presentation. But I got goosebumps just talking about this program right now, how it brought so many different community members together and just the pride and joy that came from this. We had a waiting list that was very hard for us. Like the interest really indicated that there's a need for Black food programs. So I'll leave that there for Blended Forward. And then our aftermarket, again, this one is, you heard Nikaya just talk about briefly about the markets, how back in the day our ancestors also grew the lands. And for generations, African Nova Scotians and communities like Beachville, Africville, Upper Hammonds Plains, and the Prestons brought their harvest to the Halifax markets. And these trips were more than commerce. They were acts of resilience and cultural continuity. Families exchange fresh produce for essentials and sustain their communities and preserve traditions despite the systemic barriers. And as an example, Nikaya was talking about the advocacy of our ancestors way back in the 18 and early 1900s. And as an example, on February 16th of 1827, the residents of Beach Hill petitioned now called Beachville, petitioned the House of Assembly to improve the roads on the northwest arm so that they could have more easily get their goods and markets to Halifax. And, that petition was granted. So for me, I think that's huge. And we talk about, like, we come from advocacy, right? So they advocated way back then and were successful in many things. But what we realized is today, there's not many folks at the market that look like us. So we created this program to offer families and community members the opportunity and experience to take up space in that brewery market, right? And through this initiative, they were able to get access to local, fresh, and culturally inspired foods, right? We were able to provide market money. So, and I love how that does the market money. There's no, you didn't stand out to folks. It's a coin system. So people are able to get what they want without feeling any type of way. And again, it matters because it provides access to fresh, healthy, and locally sourced foods. And it also strengthens community ties and supports the local entrepreneurs. And it creates that inclusive space for folks to just connect. And we're proud to say that. And this year we were able to provide more than 60 families with the experience and opportunity to attend the market. And I have to tell you, the joy that you saw with just seeing families, the young children in there, the elders, just, experiencing it. And as we said on the slide there, 90% of our attendees were first-time visitors to the brewery market. So again, it shows the need for these programs, I believe.
Right. And sorry to interject, Danielle, I'll just highlight as well for everybody. This is the first year that we've actually been having the aftermarket, and I won't even say fully first year. It's started in September, October. So it's only been possibly even 3 months. So the impact is real, and yeah, we're grateful.
Yes, and I must mention we're blessed to have two food coordinators who really move the work of the board. So yes, this couldn't be done without their support as well. Another program we have is the Soul Soup program, which is a community-driven initiative that brings people together through simple yet powerful acts of preparing and sharing food. And our mission is to, as Wendy said earlier, to nourish the body and spirit by delivering homemade meals to community members who need comfort, care, and connection. And as you see on there, we believe that cooking is the act of love. It's how we say, I see you, I love you, and I care for you. So to be able to deliver these to folks' door and, just, it's so appreciated and needed. And again, we delivered those soups to over 50. That batch that you saw there was chicken vegetable, and it was delivered to over 50 community members as well. And our Crisp Connections is an air fryer program that basically is intergenerational. Again, everything we try to do is, again, bringing community together on all levels, that intergenerational. There's so much wisdom that can be transferred both ways that we really try to ensure that all voices in community have a space and a place to be seen and heard. So it's designed just to bring people together through food, culture, and wellness, cook and share meals that are rooted in heritage and tradition, and, learning those healthier ways to do things, and access to nutritious food in a fun, supportive environment. Anybody that knows us knows that we like to whistle while we work and have lots of fun doing what we're doing. And again, we say a quote on there that just kind of captures, when we cook together, we create more than meals, we create belonging. And that comes from bell hooks. But also, I believe it's important to say our food tells the story of survival and celebration. Every dish is a piece of history. And then we just wanted to also close off by just sharing why cooking and sharing food matters in the Black communities. And receiving food made with love nourishes not just your body, but your soul. And it reminds us that we are valued and cared for, and fostering emotional well-being and belonging. Again, cooking community creates a space for storytelling, cultural preservation, and healing. Just this weekend, we had in the community of Beachville, it was called Healing on the Land. It was called Soul Food Stories and Strength, and very impactful to just hear all the different remedies that folks used to use back in the day, and just really sharing that knowledge with one another, right? And again, research and cultural narratives show us that communal eating reduces isolation and stress, which promotes mental health. Cooking for others actually activates feelings of purpose and joy and reinforces social ties. And food rituals preserve memory, identity, and offer comfort during times of challenge. And that's what we, aim to not only provide information in food, but really promote that healing and connection piece amongst one another. And we would like to conclude this part of our presentation with a video that speaks to the Blend It Forward, unless there's anything else that Nikki or Wendy want to add before we go into the clip.
Oh yeah, we'll get right into it. Just let me know. I'm hoping the audio will come through. Can folks hear the audio? Okay, great.
Time that our ancestors foot touched this land, the systematic oppression has held.
Yeah, something's gone wrong with I can't hear the audio anymore. Daniel, are you able to hear the audio?
No.
Maybe I got to keep myself unmuted. We'll try again.
Okay.
From the time that our ancestors foot touched this land, the systematic oppression has held us down.
Can you hear it now?
And as a result, our health has deteriorated.
It's lagging, but it might catch up. We'll just see.
The other thing you could do would be drop the link in the chat so folks could take a look at it afterwards. It is lagging a bit.
Is this a little better now? Let me try it again. We'll give it one more go. I'll still put the link in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Nikki. We're patient. I really want people to be able to see this at this moment. It's a really great video. Of course, we'll put it in the chat, but we'll just give it one more try.
From the time that our ancestors foot touched this land,
Is it coming through?
systematic oppression has held us down. And as a result, our health has deteriorated.
No,
Sorry,
Daniel,
is the audio?
The
No?
auto is yeah, so we're not able to hear it. So just wondering if just in the next 20 minutes or so, once it fully buffers, like if that would make a difference.
Yeah, it
If try
might.
it
And
later.
let me make sure. One person. Like all my settings should be okay for the audio. Yeah, we'll give it a sec. Maybe in the meantime, we could just take a quick peek at the Q&A because there's been a few questions that came in, and I'll try to get this situated for us.
Thanks, Nikki.
Problem.
Wendy, are you able to open the Q&A there and view those questions?
Sure. Let's look to see what we have in here. So, good morning. Some salutations we have in here.
Oh, I think you're looking at the chat.
Oh, I am looking at the chat. Now, remind me again, I am not as tech savvy as Nikea.
Just at the bottom of the screen, there's a little box with a question mark in it and the number 2 beside it to indicate there are 2 questions in there. If you
Okay.
click on that.
Okay, there we
One
go.
from Paul and
Here
one
we
from
go.
Maddie.
Yes. Yeah, got it. So really appreciating this panel and learning about the ANSB Food Sovereignty Advisory. Do you work outside of Halifax at all? Example, rural Nova Scotia, internationally. Do you have relationships with any Black / African Nova Scotian farmers, farm workers, growers? asking with my National Farmers Union's hat on? So that is the first question.
So I think that right now we kind of answered a little bit about it. Right now we do. Right now we're currently in the HRM area with the Just Food Strategy program. But as we said, we do plan to explore further, and do expand and provide programming once we've able to secure funding.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'll quickly mention is we've been very fortunate to be able to forge some excellent partnerships, and Feed Nova Scotia is a really big partner of ours. The brewery market did partner with the advisory in order to provide those market dollars, as well as the one is our host organization has been very supportive. Also, we just have an amazing team. So the four of us have been working so closely together over the last few years. And one of the things that leads us is our sense of spirituality and our connection to the land and community here in Mi'kma'ki. But we also do our own work in community. So Nikea just started her own first Black dietary nutrition firm. She might want to speak to that. Maybe I didn't get that correct. And Danielle does some really amazing work in Black communities with her Inherited Healing Hub. She talked about the soul food dinner that was hosted over the weekend. There were two sessions. I had the great fortune of being able to connect with the Beachville community to talk about Black food sovereignty and really try to collect and preserve our stories and our heritage and our culture through food. And myself, I one of the things that I love to do in community is I'm an educator, so I've been developing educational products and as well as doing some other stuff and really doing a lot of work across the country. So yes, we have definitely. I know I have Nikea and Danielle have had conversations and networked with many people across Canada. And one of the things that we plan on doing is growing our connection and looking for partnerships. So, Paul, would really love to talk to you afterwards about making those connections between the National Farmers Union and our advisory group and the further in our work.
Mhm.
So the next question is, I have been learning about the colon cancer epidemic among young adults and thinking that it might be related to processed foods. Are you seeing disproportionate rates of colon cancer among people of African descent? And also, how does this intersect with barriers to healthcare for Black and racialized people? Well, we know we we've known for a while that uh, Black and Indigenous people are disproportionately affected by food-related diseases, and so this is something that has been on trend for a long time in our communities. And this is, to be honest with you, this is why I do this work. When I learned that people who are severely food insecure can die up to 9 years earlier than someone who isn't, I thought this is necessary work. This work has to be done. And so this is what really got me into this movement. And when I say it's a movement, I mean it, because food affects everything that we do. Nikkei, you had mentioned that earlier. Everything that we do, everything that we see, how we perceive things, our mental, spiritual, emotional health is all connected to the foods that we're consuming. And one of the things that I often think about is even the collection of our food, right? So I hop in my car and I drive to the grocery store and I, pick up my groceries, or to be honest with you, my partner Lisa does all of that, to be honest with you, but I'll do it sometimes around holidays and stuff, but, or pick up a thing here and there. But even the way we collect our food is important. So for my father's people and my mother's people a generation ago, this would be done on the land. This would be me going out and foraging blueberries with my cousins, or this would be me collecting apples, or this would be me picking out the stones in the soil to prepare the soil to be to prepare the sowing. It's so many pieces that we don't really think about that we're missing out on when we aren't connected to the land. And so we are very well aware of the connections between food-related diseases and what we're consuming and environmental racism. And this is really what we're trying to curb. This is the thing that we're trying to promote, is this movement to lending individuals, families, and communities the knowledge and the wisdom that they need, the knowledge and the wisdom that is already ours, that belongs to us, that we are entitled to. And so we often look in the African Nova Scotian community and the broader African community, the African diaspora, is this notion of Sankofa, right? Sankofa is this bird. It's one of the Adinkra symbols, and it's the bird that's looking feet forward, head looking backwards at an egg on its back, so representing past, present, and future. This is what's so important to us, is that we already hold the knowledge that we need. We just need to access it. And Danielle does a really great job of, in the community of Beachville, does a really great job of bringing people together intergenerationally, so this knowledge can be transferred to the younger generations.
I'll interject and say I did get the audio to work, so we can watch the video and then come back to some questions. But also to chime into the answer to that question from a clinical perspective, yes, there's a direct correlation for that between the increasing rates of colon cancer, and for those who are a part of the African, Nova Scotian, and Black community, but also other racialized groups as well. A lot of it does come down to, this work that we are striving to achieve, but also we are achieving in real time. So I don't always want to say we're working towards something because we're doing it, but the correlations are there. So I'll stop chatting and I'll share. We'll watch the video and then come back to more questions. Okay, here we go.
From the time that our ancestors' foot touched this land, the systematic oppression has held us down. And as a result, our health has deteriorated.
Behind you guys, behind. You test tasted yet?
Yep, we're behind you guys. Yep.
How's it coming, ladies?
I think we're done.
Oh yeah.
Thank you that we're gathered in the name of food as well, to reconnect to healthy food and learn some new healthy habits. Many people may say, well, what's an Afrocentric approach? What does that even mean? And one of the things that we do, we're spiritual people. We opened and closed each session in prayer. And the circle is important. It's fundamental with our community, and having hands to hands, shoulder to shoulder, standing in prayer, united, was very powerful.
What I liked about the session is that we acknowledge God as well as our ancestors.
I'm more interested in that kind of fellowship piece, and getting to know other people and sharing their wisdom and knowledge.
A lot of work went into this, thinking about ways that I can support you guys on your journeys and bring you things that are easy to implement in your everyday lives. So tell me what your kind of favorite go-to recipe or food is to make when you are in a crunch.
It would be something that incorporates potatoes in some capacity.
I also did this program with my mother and my aunt. And so for me, I think it's important to teach it generationally in terms of health.
The community piece to it, so bringing other people from, different generations into the same space, sharing that positive energy.
My name is Nikkei Paris, and I'm a registered dietitian and co-facilitator of our Blended Forward meal prep program for African Nova Scotians and Black community members. Super excited to be here today. We are having our first session of many more to come. We're going once a week for the entire month of October. For today's session, we are doing 2 recipes. So they made a go-to green smoothie, has some spinach, some mango, some pineapple, along with some almond milk. Well, we messed it up.
No, we didn't.
And then for the second recipe they're on right now, they're actually making a juice recipe that calls for apple, carrot, and ginger with a little hint of lemon. So stay tuned.
The fact that we had a registered dietitian, how often do we as Black people in our Black community have access to that particular type of expertise around our health? And she wasn't just there on a weekly basis just to navigate people as they cook the delicious recipes that she created. She led a 45-minute literacy program and was there with people throughout the entire month, answering questions, shared her personal email, answering their own questions that had nothing to do with the program itself. So people had immediate access to a dietitian, some of them for the first time in their life.
We did that little quiz, the questionnaire in the beginning, and made me realize that I don't know enough.
And my name's Kim, not Sharon. We got to start eating better as a community, putting better food in us, less processed food, and going back to nature and find healthier ways to feed our bodies. I want my food to be like a battery.
It was very important to me that we focus on African Nova Scotian communities so we can help to bring our people up, get our health together before we branch out to the greater Black community.
I'm glad that I'm part of it because I'm learning stuff that I can be healthier for me as well as my family, and that will extend on to the larger community as well.
And I always wanted to learn how to make squash soup, so tonight we're learning to make squash soup. Flavor, okay, you want to try? What do we do? Try. Oh, yes.
Each week we would provide a different way of working with the blender.
I love blender type foods, meals. And I thought when this program came out, someone actually tagged me on social media, and I saw it immediately, tagged it right away. And I'm glad that I did because I'm already learning new things I didn't know before.
A program like this is the opportunity to bring us all together with common goals, common understanding, and common experiences. We're able to talk freely, feel understood, and programs like this, especially with food insecurities and everything like that right now, with the cost of living, it's so important to be able to take part in an opportunity like this and learn so we can share with the other people in our community.
Every participant gets a Ninja blender. And so at the end of the program, when I felt like Oprah and I was like, you get a blender, and I called his name and I gave him the blender, his eyes just lit up. And that is such a beautiful feeling, knowing that this gentleman, like the rest of our participants, are going to go home and make better choices because of tools that they were given from the Blended Forward program. One takeaway I hope every single participant gained is just start now. Start now. Don't wait any longer to make a change in your health, to make a change in your health journey. Do something today. And one of the beautiful things with the Blended Forward program is we start small. Small, easy, simple steps. You don't have to run the marathon. You just have to put your workout clothes on and take that first step. And with the Blended Forward program, we wrap our arms around each other and we take that step together. The beautiful thing about the Blended Forward program is that it's just getting started. Its starting point is in community, and rightfully so, because every individual must have access to the benefits of this program. But why can't everybody benefit from this? Why can't this be in every organization, in all parts of industry, held in all departments, government, corporations? Let's get healthy together. What a perfect team building exercise than to be able to learn how to make good, nutritious, healthy food together. Who doesn't benefit from that? Society benefits from that. So our vision for this program, it's just getting started. We see a Canada that is healthier, that is stronger, and that is blending it forward together. We're starting in community, but the nation is the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Thanks for getting that going, Nikaya.
Oh, no problem.
We
I
really
have
want
to.
to be able to see that, so we
Yeah.
appreciate in real time. So I'm gonna just look in the chat and the Q&A to see what we have here. So Daniel Ockel from the National Collaborating Center for Determinants of Health. Wendy, you said something earlier about racism and food sovereignty. that you have been fighting racism all your life, but realize that this issue of food sovereignty isn't uh, racism after all. I am paraphrasing. I'm so sorry. Would you please explain a bit more? I have thoughts racism was at the root. Okay, so yeah, exactly. Racism and our access to culturally appropriate, healthy, sustainable food. But what I realized my focus growing up was on the racism. And I realized that it's difficult for anyone to fight racism when, you don't have enough food, you don't have proper shelter, you are now not able to actualize anything. You're just really trying to survive. And so having the time and the nourishment and the food that one needs to be able to make better decisions, I think, is crucial. It's hard if someone's going to dialysis twice a week to really think about, how do you do that respectful workplace complaint? How do you address other things that are in your environment if you're not of sound mind, body, and spirit? And so just changing the focus of and looking at a really direct way, something very tangible, such as food and food systems, has really been able to propel us further into understanding the social justice issues around food and how they relate to us in community. Would anyone else like to add on to that before I move on to the next question? Okay, so we have what role do you see the HRM as a municipality as playing in this work? Are there gaps that are needed in what's currently being done at the municipal level? So we do get some of our funding from the HRM and the Just Food Action Plan, which is a strategic plan for the city of Halifax, only implemented a couple of years ago. As a result, we have one Black food coordinator, and we were able to source funding for a second Black food coordinator in community. And so what we heard is that feeding folks is the responsibility of provincial government. And so what we've convinced the municipal government to do is to give us some seed money, is to give us money, and we would use that money for human resource to grow other funding, to grow programming, and that, what we're looking at is being self-sufficient. And our true goal at the end of all of this is that we're not going to be looking for funding from anyone. We're actually looking as this as an opportunity to grow socially, economically, so that we're able to support ourselves. Did Danielle or Nikki, you want to add anything to that before I move on?
On top of that, like you said, the self-sustainability is a huge goal of ours, and not only to do the work that we need to do, then to also spread that into community by helping communities hopefully become more self-sustainable as well. So by bringing programming.
Yeah, and I just like to add as well, one of the things that I've come to experience with working with different levels of government and groups is for our own convenience, it's very easy to compartmentalize things and say, well, this is this person's or this group's or this organization's responsibility, and they need to do this, they need to do that. I think I'd like to challenge not just HRM, but all levels of government to, as best as they can, really just work together, because that is a big barrier that HRM itself faces on really trying to figure out who is responsible for what, who should feed what people, and who or what people are the ones that a lot of funding and resources should go into. But many of us do not just belong to one region or one group, as Wendy mentioned before, even just how we identify ourselves as African Nova Scotians come in just a plethora of different words and terminologies. And so it's one of those things that I just always try to encourage not just thinking of, this money can only go to this group or this people. It's doing our best and trying to hold entities accountable to say we all contribute to larger systems and we all benefit from larger systems outside of what is labeled as one person or one group's or one organization's predominant goal or the only focus. So yeah, that's just all I'd like to add.
Yeah. And one of the things that I will add on to that as well, because I think this is the perfect segue, is this notion of community engagement is something that we really have down. Like we really spent a lot of time. And so even with the over 50 Black communities throughout Nova Scotia, we don't like I grew up in the inner city. I still reside there part-time. And so we don't just make these assumptions when going into other people's communities that we know better. And so we really put the control in the hands of the community. So even with the blended forward program or the other initiatives that we have going, we consult community before going in about what would you like this to look like in your community. And so we just don't make those assumptions. We are not a monolithic people. And so engaging in community really means being relational and to really getting to know people and really understanding or not understanding, leaving it to the people in those communities to share what those nuances are so that we can really be effective. So there is another question here, I believe. I'm going to read it. The dream is to build a geothermal power greenhouse that can potentially produce year-round. How do you push through barriers of lack of political will to budget for climate projects or government red tape? I'm privileged to be an employee, so I have insider information and ability that okay, very interesting. Um, but sometimes this also ties my hands in terms of advocacy. So definitely, this was an anonymous comment, but please get in touch with us. We are always looking for these types of initiatives. Our real goal here, as I already mentioned, is we plan on, and what we have been doing is taking the seed money and using it very um, efficiently so that we can grow, so that we don't have to worry about who's going to fund this for a year, who's going to fund this for 2 years, writing these grant proposals. And so this is something that we're looking at growing. We're a civil society organization. We are really doing the work that government should be doing, but with sometimes these generic templates doesn't really tailor to community. And this is our forte. This is what we've been able to do. We've been able to be successful because we are tailoring things to community. Um, I'm also one of the co-founders of the African Nova Scotian Freedom School, which has been such a successful program over 5, 6 years. And the reason is because we're tailoring it to community. We know community. We are community. And you saw us in those kitchens. If you recognize in the Blended Forward program, we were there. We were there. We were there with some family members. We were there with other family members. Like we are community. And so, the people that are solving the problems should be the closest to the problems, right? They should be the ones benefiting from the problems or issues or struggles or barriers. And so that's one thing that we've really been able to leverage really well is our sense of community engagement. Here's a question here. I'm going to let someone else answer this. Does one have to be a spiritual person to attend?
No, we do not discriminate at all. Again, we are huge on the Ubuntu. I am because we are, and we welcome welcoming folks in. We just ask you to bear with you have everybody does what works for them, and folks have the option to join in or join out when we're doing the spiritual part of it. And it's yeah, I'll pass it over to Nakia.
Yeah, thank you for that, Danielle. I echo everything that you said. I do personally believe that everyone is spiritual to some capacity, and so that's also the space that we create of just allowing you to come in and to be respectful. Again, a lot of the principles that we abide by, like Danielle and Wendy mentioned before, is around the Ubuntu principles. Again, thinking of our Indinkra symbols and what they mean and those values that they hold. yes, they have, we use different terminology to describe them, but these are a lot of it is basic principles that each and every one of us should be utilizing every day, regardless of what space you're in at work, how you respect one another, how you carry your own ancestral knowledge, your own um, information and learnings from your parents, your grandparents, even things that you learn, from your children, and how we show up and just respect each and every person, the space, how we just give thanks to the supplies that we're able to have, the people that show up, the energy that we have. So no, you don't have to be a spiritual, quote unquote, a spiritual person, but the ways and the feelings in which you feel when you cook, when you're in those environments, I want to warn people to tell you it's very hard not to show up in this programming and smile or laugh or dance. In the video you see me dancing. It's something I do every day. I always cook or do something with music, and historically growing up, again, for many of us in Black communities, the kitchen was such a space that was used for much more than just food cooking, storing, and preparation. It's where we learned, it's where you laughed, it's where you cried, it's where you got disciplined, it's where you shared with things. And so yeah, when we're in these programs and doing these types of engagements and inviting folks to come into the space, it's inviting you in your totality of who you are. So however that is to express that. But there are spiritual aspects that we uphold within the African Nova Scotian and Black community that I think people will just naturally tend to. Again, the laughs, the music. We always had music playing when we were in programming and cooking these recipes. And I'll just mention as well, for myself as a nutrition professional and a dietitian, there's so many things I learned in school of this is how you do things. This is, you don't do this, you don't do that, you do this. You have to be mindful. And we were extremely food safe. I am certified in my advanced food safety certification, so that was first and foremost. And I did, instill a lot of those principles into our recipes and doing things every day. But again, music was a big part of our programs, and it's a big part of us in terms of the people of our spirituality too.
And if we think about it, this is something we chatted about just recently, Danielle and I, at the event that she organized on the weekend in Beachville, is just this notion around what food is and ingredients in food. And sometimes, most of the time, all of the time, we're using physical ingredients that you put in a certain order. And but the piece that I know is most important is that when I'm my mother has passed, God rest her soul, but when I'm in the kitchen making and my partner does the majority of the cooking, but I do the traditional cooking. Like when family comes over, baked beans with a smoked ham hock and some fish cakes and green beans and cornbread and those. When I'm in the kitchen making those things, I can guarantee you, Dorothy Wilson is right behind me, whispering in my ear. I feel her in the space every single time. That memory gets transferred into the food. The other thing that gets transferred into the food that just makes your mothers, your grandmothers, your great aunts, whoever these people are that make these special recipes that make the food so special is the love that is transferred from that person into the food. One of the things that is very traditional in the African Nova Scotia community is to give thanks. So we say a grace before we eat our food. We have someone bless the food. We also blessings with the intention of it nourishing our mind, bodies, and spirits. But really, most importantly, we always bless the cook, right? We always bless the hands that prepare this food. And I always thought that this blessing was bless the hands that prepared this meal is like, oh, a thank you for making this meal. But what I learned is it's something different. It's like we want your hands to be blessed. We want that feeling of love and memory to be transferred into the food that we're eating, the healing food, the soup, the chicken soup, the soup as medicine, the food as medicine. And I have to announce, or sorry, recognize or acknowledge as someone who's been so important in my journey along this food sovereignty road, and that is a brother by the name of Anon Leiloli, from the African Food Basket in Toronto, the African Food Alliance, and he said something. Food is our premier medicine, and I took that very seriously. And the other quote that I heard that I quote often is a man by the name of Byron Beardy from Four Arrows Nation in Manitoba. he said that when you're born, when I'm born, when we're born, food is included. And I was like, food is included. That's true. That's absolutely true. Any animal, mammal, flower, anything organic, like on this earth, food is already provided. And I thought, yes, yes, everyone has an inherent right to enough food. That's why I thought it meant that first. And then I thought about it as I sat here in my office and watched a deer go by and eat some of the nuts that were on the ground. And I was like, oh, he's talking about a very specific type of food. He's talking about food from the land, the food on the land. He's not talking about everyone has their inherent right to go to any of these grocers and, pick out whatever they want or food, but he's talking about the piece that I feel like we're missing, right? We talk about traditional agriculture, but what about the food that you can forage? And this is how my people survived off the land, is that there weren't any grocery stores in my father's community or in my mother's community. But, it was the younger folks' chore to go out and collect food. You're a city girl. I went to the country, hung out with my cousins to pick enough blueberries for a blueberry pie. They had to be picking enough blueberries for dinner or for the next. So it was something that was necessary for them. That this is how you survive, right? Is you find the mushrooms, the crab apples, you take this food, you use very simple preservative, sugar, salt, and vinegar to preserve your food. And so I would love to challenge you to think about what is in your immediate environment or places that you might visit throughout this province or other provinces, food that you can collect from the land that could sustain you, and also the emotional and health benefits that you can get from just actually being on the land and being in nature.
And also, Wendy, I also want folks to think about back when they were younger and the things that they may have had access to. I know myself, we grew up picking blueberries in our community, the crab apples, but those blueberry patches are no longer there. There's an apartment building there, right? So just to think about the things, how we've commercialized so much of our lands as well. So it's important to now more than ever try to think of ways that we can put food back in our lands, whether that's planting fruit trees and what have you. Just that's something I think that's important as well.
And I'll just get back. Paul Wortman had asked about our connection to farmers and farm growers and farm workers. This is a piece that that we really need to kind of hone in on. But yes, we do in community know farmers. This is the stories that we're actually trying to collect right now. Part of our work is also, and a big part of Danielle's work and the work that I do, is going to community and preserving these cultural stories. But we would like to grow our relationships with the farming community in and outside of community. Like I just have to mention Calvin Golf. Calvin Goff is a farming genius. Like this is a man that I have conversations with about how we can bring technology actually forward in terms of how we're growing our food. So this is a connection that we're still working on. We definitely have had conversations around farming, black farming funds is something we're looking into as well. So Paul, we would love to connect with you and to kind of further this agenda so that people can have the resources and build the capacity to be able to actually grow this food themselves. One thing that we do have in the African Nova Scotian community is we have access to land, which is very different than other Black people in other parts of Canada, is that we own property communally or in community with other Black folks. And so it's definitely something that we have our eyes set on and that we're interested in pushing and moving forward. And I'm just looking at the time, and time is looking perfect.
Right. I was just taking a quick peek in the chat. Thank you, everybody, just for all of the encouragement and the wonderful words. There's another question that came in. Oh, yes, we will make sure to share our contact information as well as I have a whole list and plethora of like resources and additional things for learning if anyone's interested, podcasts, videos, journals. So we'll share that list as well.
Nikki, I've been harvesting a few of the links that you've dropped in the chat and plan to post those along with the recording of this session as some related links that folks can find via the Commission's website. Yeah, the timing wasn't the only thing perfect about this presentation. I just think that this has been one of the most engaged attendee groups. I've seen more mind blown emojis posted for this session than I have for any of the others. So thank you, Nikia and Wendy and Danielle. In addition to being just excellent presenters, Nikia, you're a wonderful tech whiz for getting that video going. I'm so glad that you were able to share that. It was really powerful. Again, thanks so much for sharing such a wide-ranging, inspiring, and really just universal story that we can all draw from. I think the inspiration is going to be wide-reaching. I'd encourage folks to take this recording and share it broadly. And one little seed to plant, perhaps before we wrap it up, is that nominations for the Nova Scotia Human Rights Awards are open all year round. And so, for anybody that was inspired by the work that you've heard about today, I would encourage you to consider, yeah, that the nominations for Human Rights Awards are open all year. And folks can visit us online tomorrow to watch this year's presentation, which promises to be a great event. Thanks so much again for the planning that went into this conversation. Are there any social media channels or community groups that folks could search out to keep tabs on this work that you can share?
That's a great question. And our group as itself, we're still working on getting those links up. As we mentioned multiple times, this is a lot of what we classify as our heart work, but myself, Wendy, Danielle, and Rodney, we all have full-time jobs outside of this, but this is where the power of our food coordinators come into play. So I feel like the best way to get in touch with us is by email, but with all of our personal social media channels, which I'm sure we can share links to LinkedIn and things like that, we do share a lot of the work that we do as an advisory as well. So yeah, and I'll pass it off to Wendy and Danielle if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, the other thing that I do want to add, and just not for myself, but just like the four of us work very much so in a volunteer capacity. This is work that we absolutely love to do, and it is like we all work very robust full-time jobs, but this is the work in the evenings and at lunch hours that really bring us so much joy. And so I just want to personally thank Nakeya and Danielle and Rodney for just all of the passion and all. You see how we work together. You see how we all have different expertise, but it just seems to meld together so beautifully. And Nakeya, with her technological skills, that I'm so envious of, I panic. Whenever something is not working online, I just start sweating and panic, and I don't know which button to push. So thank you, Nikea, for navigating us through that and through the great slide deck that you put together previously, and that we were able to benefit from and able to share with you this morning. So thanks everyone for taking the time to come in. We're so appreciative. Thanks Jeff and Gola for the invitation. Very much appreciated as well. And there's just so much more to say, and we're looking forward to other opportunities to be able to share this work with you.
Thank you all for the opportunity to hear about our program. And as I also want to thank Wendy, Nakeya, and Rodney for being a part of such hard work that for generations to come.
Yeah, and I'll just put a last plug in there too. Thank you guys all just for showing up and doing your best to be present. But also again to Wendy and Danielle and Rodney. I know Wendy mentioned it earlier in the presentation, but it's we have a very unique dynamic, and all three of these the rest of our advisory members have seen me grow through almost each phase of life. So it's just another plug to show how closely we work, and how closely we've always been connected in some way, shape, or form. And so yeah, just super blessed, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if it was coincidental that this session happens to end just before lunch. So hopefully folks are inspired to go eat well and take care, everybody. Thanks again.
All right.
Bye now.